I have been on a quest for a strand of pearls unlike any I'd seen before. As a researcher, I know that people don't wave their pearls in the wind. They hold them close to their hearts. Hello, I'm Catherine Whalen Costin, a curious explorer, a researcher and writer, producer and host of Let's Get Real Chattin' with Catherine, Clarity Whisperer podcast, and the author of Father Walter Krusky's life journey. Today I present to you a deep conversation where my guest so generously shares with us to expand our horizons, to get to know other people's journeys. If you listen well, you can hear a heart speak. As part of the documentary series, Beyond the Front Door, I went in search for the wisdom beyond the celebrity hype, beyond the shiny veneers, to the places real people live, the hurdles they jump, the barriers they meet, in my quest to unearth those pearls. Do we need each other? Do we learn from each other? What is the purpose of life on planet Earth? And what does it mean to be human? To be a woman? What challenges do we face? And can we build better relationships and systems to create an exquisite world for all? Watch for the full documentary, read the bios on the website catherinewhalencostin.com, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well for regular updates and interviews from all my generous contributors. Before I could compile my research for the documentary and my string of really unique pearls, I had to explore with the people who hold those pearls. Let us begin right now.
You know, the book, The Red Tent, the whole concept, women, we've been passing this information for eons, and that's what
we do.
That's important. That's what we do. That's why I think, again, the books or women saying yes to doing this is because we need to pass the information. That is primal as well.
We know there's no overnight successes. So how did they get there? And what were their journeys like? And today I'm going to bring you one such woman who I really admire. She started off in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, followed a path that she knew as a little girl she could do anything. But as an adult, it became a little bit different. So she got into bodybuilding. She went to the University of Saskatchewan, and she moved to Calgary. She had a highly successful career in real estate sales, marketing, management, got into all kinds of aspects of business, venture capital, and how to build a corporation. And she is a really amazing woman. Today, we're going to be exploring with Laura Simonson. She is the founder and creator of a plant-based food for dogs. And so it's really great to have modern day women who are aspiring to do something differently, something that is going to make a difference in our world. And I think today's guest is just the perfect example. Laura Simonson.
Virchew is not a dog food company. It's about food for dogs. There's a big distinction. And so underneath all of this, it's all about empowerment. It's all about social change. It's about women for sure, because that's my happy spot is to be sharing my story so that other women feel they can do the same.
It wasn't an overnight success, of course. It was a journey. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. I've known you for so many years, and we've never had this opportunity.
Because you've had some fun life experiences that just I'm so curious about. But I want to start with, you grew up in Saskatoon. What does a little girl, Laura, dream, if she dreams at all, about life as Laura the woman?
I was a dreamer. Dreaming was easy for me. So I was constantly feeling there was always another way, and I can't quite explain how that came, but it was always a feeling like there's always another way, or what's the right thing to do. That sort of sits with what I feel as a little girl when I was a little girl, and my Baba, Ukrainian Russian Baba, lived with us, and so we had 5 kids. Baba's living in the home. My dad has built our home. He's a real phenomenal, carpenter, obviously, and build homes. And my mom is a phenomenal Ukrainian mom. She was so much a mom. So I was constantly given, because I was the youngest, I always felt like I lucked out being the youngest. And so I definitely was given a lot of good tools from, especially my mom. She was extremely positive. And so she was always uplifting me. There was always, do whatever you love, do what you want. Even though she came from really rough times, and so did my Russian Baba, she made it to she actually lived through the Russian Revolution, but lost 2 children, got to Canada.
Baba is grandmother?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was grandmother or grandfather. So grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, grandmother.
So she
Russian Revolution is poor. Yeah, exactly. And made it to Canada. Her husband came about 2 years before her, and then had my mom and my uncle. So she basically has had 2 lives and 2 families. So she definitely was, she had a tough life, and mom wasn't taught a lot of positive things, but somehow mom had that light in her. And mom's very very popular in Saskatoon and throughout her life there. And so I learned a lot from her. So I had a lot of great love, coming from having, of course, having our Baba in our house. It was actually, it added more to the family unit.
You were encouraged to be a woman, that could like, I find that really fascinating, that from Russian immigrants, that they felt for a woman that you could have dreams and be anything you wanted.
Maybe more like a young girl, do what you want. It was more encouraged, as a young girl. So not so much in my older years, I could see what my mom was playing out, which was the typical, what you were taught to be as a woman, right? Yeah. And hiding in some level her beauty, However, as a child, I definitely had a lot of great encouragement, and I had phenomenal teachers in my school, in King George School in Saskatoon. And my grade 1 and 2 teacher was Ainsley Thompson, and my goodness, I'm still trying to get a hold of her. She was an angel. She assisted me in ways that, how you just can't describe at the time when you're little, and until you get old and you realize, wow, that person made such an impact in my life. And so, so I had a lot of great support that was needed, because there was some troubled stuff in my childhood. So it was really, really important to have those kind of role models and those kind of mentors, and certainly a very, very positive mom.
And that's what I think is important for people who are watching this, to really get that. If you are a teacher or you are in your community, that's what that saying, "It takes a village," means.
So
we can uplift the neighbor's child, and that neighbor's child can go on to do magnificent things because of a few words of encouragement, telling them they're wonderful and you're glad they're in your neighborhood.
So it's a great story, and it'll be definitely part of my story and book someday, because I do want to write that too.
I think that's interesting too, that the writing of the books seems to be a process a lot of women are embarking on, myself included, to share our stories. And I kind of makes me wonder sometimes if it's because we didn't have the opportunity to speak our truth and our experience and our vision.
Very possible. Very possible. But I also believe that part of what you're doing too is that when you, lift someone else up, like you're doing in an interview here and wanting to share somebody else's story, it gives you the fuel. And women, we love that. We love to connect people. We love to uplift each other. And, there's certain stats out there. Somebody named the other day that 90% of the women believe that we shouldn't support other women. I don't know where those stats come from, but I said, I don't see it.
No.
I say, certainly there's some unconscious things that, there are, as women, we certainly are dealing with, but I see women uplifting women. And I think by sharing our story, we really just want to uplift other women.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's a sign of maturity. I mean, young girls, I would say, go through
Mhm.
that period in puberty where it's all competition because of the genetics. We're going through our hormones, and
Okay.
we're programmed that way to, but I think that too much has been made out of that, and even in some cases promoted with movies and such, that as if being a mean girl
Yes.
good thing, when
Yeah.
it really is not. And you're not, if you're one of those, you're not going anywhere with your life. You're not going to succeed, because
Unfortunately not.
we need each other, right?
We do.
So,
We do.
and so for you, and you knew you could sort of have big dreams and go anywhere. And I'm gonna
Kind of, because there was the other side, which is not so good. But at the same time, I always knew there was another way. And I don't know why that term keeps coming, but that I always felt as a child there's another way. I never had a feeling of I knew what I was going to be when I grew up. I never felt that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate to that. I mean, you have had just so many fun, interesting sidelines on your journey. Like, it's like your path wasn't like, few of us have a straight path, and yours was no different. But so I'm thinking of, in time you were growing up, and we're still dealing with it today in some ways, the objectification of women, so that we aren't whole human beings with all of us, we're just our physicalness. And sometimes it's interesting when I saw that you had done some modeling and you had gotten into bodybuilding. And so, and I look at that as not so much objectification, but taking back your power. So I'm wondering how did you see it as part of it? What age were you at when you?
I was 26. I was 26.
So why?
Yeah, so the good news is, when I was younger, I was very athletic. And so I had that ability, and that was probably what gave me a lot of confidence and strength, because I could lead, I could sort of go out on the field, or I can go on the court, I could do pretty much any sport. And that gave me a lot of confidence that was needed, And so later on in life, I have a friend of mine. I'm going to university. This is fun story. I'm in university class. I'm in chemistry class at U of S. And it's one of the first classes. So it's one of those large theaters, right? So I'm sitting, and this nice looking guy sits down next to me, and, so we start to chat. And so anyway, he said, "Do you want to go for a coffee in between class?" "Oh, let's do that." So we're walking down the hall, and I said to him, something about, I just shaved my legs and my jeans are sticking. You know that feeling? Right? and he said something, he goes, "Oh, I know what you mean." Now, this is back early 80s. And I looked at him, I said, "Really?" And he said, "Oh, I'm a bodybuilder. So I've had to shave my body. And so I understand what it means when you say your jeans are sticking to your legs." So anyways, that was the beginning of actually a relationship. And Craig Shear was his name, an amazing human being. And he was really a great natural bodybuilder. Back then, he was completely, against steroids, and was doing it all natural. He ended up winning the Saskatchewans, and doing it naturally. Anyway, so he taught me about bodybuilding. And then from there, I just went to the gym a lot. And so again, on a natural flow I'm athletic. I loved going there. I was a team player. I there weren't many individual things that I did. So for me to go into a competition I didn't go into bodybuilding and say, I'm going to compete. I was just going to the gym. It became my community. I met a lot of great people. It was below the nightclub that we went to. So it was perfect. You can go work out and then get drunk. So it was perfect. Throughout the years, I met someone else. Rick Suchak was my boyfriend during the time that I was at that gym. And we actually we broke up. We broke up during, we'd been together like 4 years or so, and we broke up, and I was just devastated. It was my first, love hurt. And I was devastated. And so I couldn't eat when I'm anxious and nervous or devastated at that time. It was, I couldn't eat. So it ended up, I started to shed a lot of weight, and my girlfriends are looking at me and going, you got a natural way there. You could probably just go and compete. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. So anyways, in the meantime, Rick and I get back together, and we make a choice to go in the couples as well. I went into the heavyweights. I'm tall, I'm about 5'10", so I was in the heavyweight. And so that's how I got there. I got into bodybuilding because we had a breakup. So anyways, I would think that's what we were talking about earlier, the things that look to tough and whatever actually bring us to the great things. So when I'm standing on that stage, I thought to myself, if I can do this, I can do anything. Yeah. That was really what came through, that if I can stand on a stage in a bathing suit, doing a musical routine, which was by far that was not an easy thing for me at all. If I can do this, I can do anything.
Yeah, and I love that you internalized it, that you realized it was your accomplishment, that it wasn't you didn't do it for the boyfriend.
No, I ended up, somehow I reframed it at the time, because I just wanted to succeed. Certainly there's some things there's also that part, the ego wants to do well, but it was more than that. And I realized that's why I said, when I'm on the stage, I went, if I can do this, I can do anything. But it had to do with my soul. It had to do with, if I can, do this training for all these, for all the years before that, and then train hard for 4 months, diet really hard. Keep committed to this. If I can do this, I feel I can do anything. And it was the beginning of my life, where I moved away from Saskatoon a year later and went to Calgary and started my own life, and a new life rather. And so all of it was so meant to be.
Yeah, the building blocks of seeing what you can accomplish. And I really think so. It's so important to notice the things that helped us to get where we were. Sometimes we're running so fast we don't notice what we learned, what we built, because one thing always leads to another, and it's always a choice, and you're always at these crossroads. You sometimes it looks like a Y, sometimes it looks like a T, sometimes we're always making choices. Like there's so many things you could have done differently, but this took you to, because getting on a stage for a lot of women is not a safe feeling. Like they don't feel safe. So to do it and to recognize, hey, I'm safe, I can do this, probably empowered you because you today are speaking publicly.
Absolutely, it did. It was a big part of the beginning of that, and I'm really glad. Again, whatever my mom instilled in me, and maybe the athletics, and then my teacher, Mrs. Thompson, maybe all of that made me feel as if I could do anything. I never felt that I was limited as a girl. And I always remember when I thought I know that you love sharing great things about politics and psychology. And Here Come the 70s, that show that was where a woman is walking nude into the water in a silhouette. That was like, whoa, that was like so risque back then. And I was very young, but I knew what was going on with the revolution of the freed thinking and the Vietnam and all of those things that were happening around that time. And
the beginning of seeing that group think isn't always all it's cracked up to be.
Yes. And so we only had a few of the trailblazers, which, would have been Gloria Steinem and that sort of thing, where they were literally, doing the truth telling, and they were looked at obviously as fringe. And yet they're the ones that have paved the way for us, right?
Exactly.
But, now that, as we're talking about this, more that I realized I did have a lot of great female role models, and those were teachers. A lot of, another one was Miss Friesen. She was my grade 5 teacher, and that woman was just a blazing. She had us singing songs about activism and against, using that song, "We're a stranger here on this place called Earth, and we went down here to discover the worth." She had us doing that, and you realize what that song was about.
Yes.
Right? So she had us with the kazoo, where you had the paper and the comb, and we're singing the kazoo, and we had to memorize that song.
Wow, that's powerful.
So I was given a lot of tools, right? That at that beautiful King George school, I can't say enough about that school, and what kind of people were attracted to that, and how they empowered people like me. So because it was a rough area. We came up in the West Side. We were not, and right now it's even rougher. But
very seldom is anybody's journey this path paved with, it's not a yellow brick road. It's always going to be bumpy, but along the way, if we are open to it, sometimes we're not open to the help that's being offered, but usually there's people along the way. And maybe if you're not open to the help, that's also part of your journey. That's another side of it.
Sure, for sure. We all have our own way.
Yeah.
So I made a choice to move to Calgary, and I wrote in my remember I worked in a seniors home for many years, and I had many jobs. So I was very fortunate. I was there for 10 years. And so they gave me all kinds of different jobs throughout the time I was there. It was a big organization. The Lutheran Church had built Luther Tower, Lutheran Sunset Home. They also had Luther Heights, and then Luther Family Housing. It was a very big organization then. And so I got all kinds of different jobs, and I got all kinds of great experience. But when I moved to Calgary and having the bodybuilding, thought if I can do this, I can do anything. I loved communications. I loved people. I wanted to connect people. I wanted to, then of course there was marketing communications program in Calgary at U of C. So I was looking at maybe doing some things like that, going into marketing. My sister had a marketing and finance degree from commerce at at the U of S. So I kind of thought, well, I could do that. I didn't want anything to do with finances or accounting. That stuff bored me to tears. But things like about marketing. So I ended up just sort of creating thoughts. What would I want? And I just followed where the journey seemed to want to take me, and took a personal growth program called Personal Best in Calgary. Life changer. My sister was a trailblazer for me then, helping me to find things there that could help me to build my new life. And ended up just going into real estate. And the real estate was just perfect for me because I could meet a lot of people. I could, and it was at a great place in Calgary called the Riverside Towers, where they had a big club, and I could bodybuild. I could go down and it wasn't bodybuilding anymore, but I could weight train. I could do my fitness, because that became, it was my lifelong endeavor. So I ended up having a great gym. I had a great office. I was working with people that were from personal growth, but they were now in real estate. So I really just kept following. So I ended up going into real estate, and wow, I'm 27 by then, 28, the young blonde, vivacious, I'm going to do it all kind of thing. And meanwhile, it was very humbling. It was, I got trained by some of the most phenomenal facilitators that were, prior to that, personal growth facilitators who are now in real estate. So I ended up getting a real strong injection of a lot of support again. And it's again because I just kept following what I felt I should do next. And I didn't, and I found out later on in life, I'm completely unemployable. I am not a good employee. I tried it after I did real estate, because real estate was different. It was a very strong knit group, and it was phenomenal. I got an opportunity to actually, by the end of it, I was a sales manager of 28 people, most of which were double my age. Yeah. And I just had so much good fortune that people saw that I wanted to do more. I wanted to achieve. I wanted to do more. So,
and they probably appreciated your enthusiasm. A lot of times having a young, vivacious person in the office can be a threat. It can be a threat, but it can also be.
And they encouraged it.
Yeah.
They encouraged it. That was what personal growth was about. Be who you are. And, a lot of tough moments, no question, because it was constant personal growth. I was always under some sort of, light of, how are you today? Well, I'm okay. Well, tell us more. And then you get into it and you really find out, they'd kind of lay it on and say, really, poor you, back then it wasn't first world problem. But yeah, so there was just a lot of great support. And so I never ever felt that I was limited by being a woman. In fact, Catherine, it's interesting, I always felt that it was actually, it was an asset. And especially someone that knew that there was an arm's length in all of my business relationship. That's what I did. I just made sure that every time it was arm's length. I didn't get deeper, I did my profession the way that, because I wanted to honor that and be a strong.
So where did you think you learned healthy boundaries? Because that's what you're talking about, healthy boundaries. Like how many women have crossed that line and usually paid the price?
Oh, absolutely. I have no idea, because based on what happened in my childhood and based on some of the stuff that I had so much great self-sabotage. I mean, I'm missing a lot of pieces here. Like I might have looked like there was but what was behind all that was a lot of self-sabotage, just crazy partying. And I was never into anything harder than beer and wine. That was or white rum back in Saskatoon days. But, and I can really put down a lot of vodka being Russian. I'm telling you, I'm so good at it. quit doing that too. But that there was a lot of opportunity for me to self-sabotage. So I did it quite a bit.
So it wasn't without the, so yeah, I get it. You're not trying to paint a completely rosy picture of the whole thing, but
yeah, it wasn't. But it definitely was why I had a desire to overcome it. My desire to overcome it was stronger than the actual addictions or the fear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's really what happened.
Yeah. And it sounds like you were sort of gathering up experiences to put in your, tool bag that you were going to use later. And then we never know where that tool,
We
like
don't.
the bodybuilding stage,
well, all of that.
Yeah.
All of that later on when I'm in Calgary, I quit real estate and I go into personal health and fitness and wellness, and I open up a studio and I end up teaching what I've learned.
Yeah, that's where I was headed with that, was exactly. So you did that. You actually got into the whole fitness.
Right. Yeah, I took all my training to be a personal trainer, and then nutrition. There were very few nutrition certification programs that didn't really exist. I just, whatever I learned, I just passed on. And back then I made a choice because my sister was, she had gone away traveling for a couple of years while I just moved to Calgary, so I helped take care of her home while she was gone. And she became vegetarian while she was gone. So she'd gone to Thailand and she'd gone, all over to a lot of Asia. And so anyway, she became vegetarian. We did this vegetarian, then now it's called more vegan, but that was the journey. And so I had that I had done. I just, the personal growth experiences, and then, moving on to say, I'd like to teach this. And then again, there weren't any certifications. So I would just have a caveat that would say, I believe this is good because it's worked for me. I don't know if it will work for you, but it might work for you.
It's so funny, isn't it? How, when you think about, I remember when my mom telling me when she was first a new mother, and she went to her pediatrician, the family doctor, and he, had been in practice for many, many years. And it was her first baby, she was having problems or whatever, and she didn't know. And he said, listen, don't really ask me. I'm not a mom. Ask a mother. Ask somebody who has been there and who knows what all of this is about. They know way more than I do. And I thought, for the 60s, this guy was, or late 50s, this guy was really,
he's like really different.
Yeah, he really was. But that's where she learned. Right. I think from she learned to share, to gain knowledge from other women, but then she learned to pass on her knowledge in the same way because she understood them.
But isn't that really right? And that's even if we've never had children, which I've never had, it's primal. We need to share. We need to nurture.
And so for you, now you're starting to get you've got some business experience, and then from the real estate, you got into marketing, didn't you?
Well, yeah, this is the part, so I had put on my resume, I like if there's a marketing position somewhere, and it ended up that a lot of marketing was done, of course, during the real estate. And we were a condo specialist company, the first one in Calgary. And it was odd. So again, I got to be in another forerunning situation and learning as we were going, like literally learning as you're running. It was just, that's what we did. And certainly had to learn about the psychology of understanding what were they looking for in real estate and how would we honor them, because we were coming from a background of personal growth. So we weren't coming from a background of just business, sell. We were looking at what was the undercurrent and how could we assist that person. So marketing then became, for me, was not like, and again, this is going to be very common for a female, it was about relationship. Yeah. And sales are, they'd say, oh, the guys are the sales guy, and, but of course, any sales guy, they love relationships. They love communicating too. And so the psychology of marketing and just human psychology, I dived in. I loved it. I've always loved it. Reading some forward-thinking books, of course, from Louise Hay, back in 1989 and that sort of thing. And so those were all my foundation and support about marketing and communications. And it ended up that did give me many tools and a lot of financial understanding, because I learned a lot. Even then, there were limited partnerships that were buying real estate. things like that, that I used that information later in order to do my studio. So there was a lot, all of those things were paving the way for the next, because that's just the way life is. It always is, if you see it that way.
So you took that information, and when you got into your fitness, the whole fitness movement, which was, was it a combination where were you training people for physical fitness as well as nutrition and bringing the whole thing together?
Yeah, physical fitness and weight loss, people, again, I saw it as a holistic program. I wrote the program as a 12-week program that I modeled the idea around personal best at a 12-week program. And that 12-week, during a 3-month period, we can make a lot of really good changes in our life. So committing to at least 3 months. So I decided, the book at the time called Body for Life came out later, and that was a 12-week program. And I remember going, exactly, and so I had already, written these programs, but they were more not so much physical. They were more emotional. They were more mental. And then the physical part was, of course, you do a program and follow, personal training or other fitness training, weight training 3 days a week, and then the other 2 or 3 days you'd be doing cardio. So it was very simple kind of things then. But most of it was based on, then we know what to do. We know what to do to lose weight. We know what to do to get fit, but we don't do it. Why don't we do it? Well, it's emotional and it's spiritual even, and it's mental. There's many things, right? So I ended up building a whole program around the psychology of it all, and also being a trainer. And so I needed to, I had to raise capital for that, because I had to open a studio, I had to buy equipment. There was a whole venture there that was amazing. I saw a community of people stand behind it that I was in awe of it.
But what made you, what made you believe you could raise capital, you could get
I just didn't know what, I didn't take no for an answer for anything. I realized, well, I can't, it has, if it's going to get done, it needs to, obviously
I need to do it.
The banks don't finance these things because it's an idea, right? Yes, I'm opening a studio and it's fitness and it's health, but it wasn't a typical membership, right? It was a smaller, it was a big, beautiful heritage building. So it had one big room in the bathroom we built in, and a little office space. And so it was more like a small personal training studio that I could, all the equipment around the outside, and that I could put chairs in the middle and do the programs during the week. And then people would come in and do their personal training with my dog. So there's always a dog involved. So I would just talk to people and say, well, what would you do if you were doing this? And so a lot of oil and gas guys were around, really, good friends. I say, who do you know? And that kind of thing. And then the real estate people that I knew. So who do you know? Like, who would I ask about this, right?
So you didn't have any of those walls where you'd be afraid to ask, who do I ask, or what do I do? So
no,
I mean,
that's the part. I was a connector. I've always been a connector. That was Mom said when I was a little, I wasn't even 1 or 2. She said I'd be putting together puzzles that I shouldn't have been putting together yet at that age. So I guess I had this thing about connection. And so I always wanted to connect. So I'd learn from I'd learn from people by asking questions and connecting. So yeah, it was just curiosity. I just had a lot of curiosity. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to create something, and I needed to learn. It wasn't easy by any means, but it was really cool. And I realized it paved a path now for what I'm doing now. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. And also it really speaks to the other part of it, which I think women are particularly good at, and wise men are particularly good at, and that is surrounding yourself by people who have the knowledge about things you don't. Like a good manager doesn't try to do it all themselves. Yes. So you were able to draw in the people. These are your strengths, and then you brought in other people who had this other strengths. This collaboration and cooperation is really, I think that's the key to our future.
It's everything, but I don't think that we get that easily. Like some people know it naturally. There was a part, yes, I knew naturally that having more people involved and having a team support it, because it was a similar model to Personal Best. You had teams and you had people, and then you'd go and ask and you'd learn. But even with that, I still felt I had to do it all by myself. So no, I still did the self-sabotage there.
Mm-hmm. So that's interesting.
Yes. So I had to shut down the studio because I couldn't keep it going. Yeah. So you see, the next part had to happen, which was I still had not healed whatever had happened when I'm young. Of course, the belief system is there, and you want to improve it. But yeah, I'm not good enough. I'm going to shut this thing down.
Yeah.
And I didn't consciously think that by any means, but I just tried to do it all and by myself. And when I say by myself, oh, no, I'll get that done. I'll get that done. And I just, I just busted. It was just like, no, it's not going to work.
No.
And prior to that, there was another part of my real estate journey where my body did break. I was doing the party thing. I was doing the, probably not eating as well as I thought I was. And certainly my body broke. So I had a lot of tough times getting that back. And so when I was doing the same thing again in the early 2000s, I went, no, I got to stop. And so I did. So I ended up closing it down. It was horrible. It was hard. I lost my condo because I had signed off my condo to it. So you see, those are all the things that are not part of this, the things that people do see.
This is a really good point, because this is kind of part of the reason why I'm doing this series with women who are a success today, is because I wanted to let people know, like, honestly, really part of the training and marketing and selling your product or whatever is to put forward this image of, everything's great, sunshine and rainbows coming out your rear end and all that stuff. And because that's what we want to hear. I don't want to hear about the business person who's having troubles. I want to hear about the, this is all great, up, 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 up. But the problem, and that's fine if you're buying their product and you think that's what you want to buy, but it's not realistic. And then when other people are trying to perform, I'd like to go into business and look at her. She just did that, and look at it's so great.
Right.
It's not true. It's
not. That's not the truth. Yeah,
No.
because that's be like, it's like saying you're getting in an airplane and the airplane goes a straight direction. Well, it doesn't, right?
That's right.
And so it's just not life. And we do. You're right. We do aspire, but that's part of what I believe we are inspired by, seeing role models that do it. No question. And I'm so honored that so many people feel that of me, and they'll call me, they'll email me, thank you for doing that for me. And I realized, well, it was only because I was doing my best to heal myself, and I needed to share that. And I want to share that love. So anyways, we need people to inspire us.
Yeah.
But there's always, I look for the tough stories, actually. I want to hear how you got over that. That's that's why I was always diving deep into the psychological part of it, because I could see that, all of us can shed weight. All of us can, we just don't. Why aren't we? Because it's our fear base. It's our, rather it's our brain. It's nothing else stopping us from shedding weight, if that's what our goal is. Or
and
becoming fit, or, doing a contest, or whatever it was at the time.
Well, but you raise a good point, and that's like, when we have things happen to us as children, and we have a certain part of the population that will tell you, just get over it. Bad stuff happens to everybody. Like, just get over it and move on. And the problem with that is we don't get over it. It is part of our subconscious. And as you say, it plays out in our adult life. So instead of telling people to get over it, we'd be far better off to say, face it, embrace it, heal it. Heal it.
Never, no way to get over stuff. And we don't ever. And it's not, in fact, we should be using it to step on top of it to go further. That's it. And it works that way.
Yeah, that's how
it works.
And I think this is what I'm seeing with the people I talk to, who are, as I said, on successful paths, who present an image, which is what we want to see. I wouldn't want to see somebody coming out presenting their product full of their pity or their hardships.
No, of course not. That's not to be seen that way anyways, right?
It's private.
It is. And the other part too, for the most part, Catherine, we were talking about this earlier, is I share the real, the private truth with people that are my special chosen, like Gord, my partner. Gord is my freaking best friend. We are God, what a life I've had with him. It's been amazing. I tell him, I have maybe one or two girlfriends that I share that stuff with, because there's just no need to share it with others. I follow the Brene Brown and Oprah, kind of.
I was going to say, Brene Brown, she says there's people that are sort of like it's a privilege. They're
Absolutely. Exactly. And as you said, if you have one, you've won a lottery.
Yeah.
I think I've got two or three. I am so fortunate. Now I am an open book, so 1-to-1, but I choose who I share that with. That's right. So I agree with what Renee said.
You, although, as you said before, there was always a dog in your story. So this kind of leads me to where you're at now, which is really embarking on something on the cutting edge again, really.
A whole different way of doing it. Yeah, Virchew is my company now, Virchew. So, and actually it was the seeds, like you were talking about, they were planted actually in about 1989. And at the time I was in Saskatoon. I was during my bodybuilding days, and I remember I was always into natural health, and I was always going to places where there were anything that I could find something different. In this very unusual store, and I've always said I don't even know how or why it was there, but it was selling like back then was called, it was a network marketing company, and they were selling those products in that store. And I was going, well, network marketing, you never saw products in a store, right? And they had all these natural books, and I was like, and it was right downtown. So anyways, I wandered into the store, and I looked. I just happened to look at the bottom of the bookshelf, and it said vegetarian dogs and cats, and I went, huh. Really? And I remember I picked it up, and I remember looking at it, and I remember, interesting. I remember putting that down. So at the time, I was just entering into, bodybuilding was that year. I think I just finished a contest. I make a choice to look at vegetarian for myself. I read the book that John Robbins wrote, Diet for a New America. He was a forward, thinker, of course, back then. And I made a choice to just really start to look at more, eating vegetarian.
For yourself.
But throughout all those years, I'm exploring vegetarian. I was like 90% on the way to what vegan would be. Now we call vegan or plant-based. And so I during that time, in about 2001, I've got my studio. I've opened the studio in Calgary, and I get my dog. And how that came about was I've always wanted a border collie. I have her on my treasure map, vision maps, right? I've got my border collie up there because I go to all of the, which I can't go to now, but the Calgary Stampede, and I'd go to the stock dog trials. And I'd see the border collies chasing the sheep, and they were like, oh my God. I got to get a border collie. They're so beautiful and they're so smart, and I want one of those. And so anyways, it's now fast forward to 2001, and I'm doing a course, opening one of my 12-week programs in my studio, and the women are sitting in a circle, and about 30 of them sitting in a circle, and I'm in the front. And it was the night after September 11th, 2001. Mm-hmm. And the room was quite somber. We were all, that thing, I know we all remember the days and minutes around that experience. And I remember everybody saying what they felt. They're there they're talking about why they're there, but what they felt about September 11th. And I remember asking myself, why don't I have my border collie yet? Because the first thing I heard on the radio that morning when I was listening to about September 11th and the tragedy was, the announcer said, we became complacent. We've become complacent. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not living my life here fully. I've always wanted a dog. Why don't I have a dog? I could have a dog. My condo, I could have a dog. And I got a studio. I can bring my dog here. And it just started to roll. And it was the next day. I'm walking from Eau Claire and Calgary along the Bow River. And this is the part where the dog thing, Catherine, I don't know. It's always felt like there's somebody watching this and planting things along the way. It's a beautiful day. So the next day after September 11th, it's a beautiful sunny September day. I'm walking from working out, going across the park. I'm going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to pick up a newspaper because internet wasn't, as much then. So I'm going to pick up the newspaper and look for a dog. I want to see if there's border collie puppies for sale. Back then I was going to look for puppies for sale. Well, on the way, not kidding, all the way walking from downtown to Kensington Starbucks are 3 border collies in 3 different groups of people. Not true story. People go, what? True story. 3 separate border collies. And I get into the Starbucks, pick up the newspaper. There's an ad there, border collie pups out in Cochrane. And I'm like, make the phone call. She says, so who are you? She's interviewing me a bit. And she says, who are you? And I said, well, I run every day. I own a studio. I live on the river in Calgary. She goes, oh, I did. I lived on the river in Calgary too, and down in Bowness. She said, I now own 13 border collies. She said, so be careful. And it was at that, she actually had a little sheep farm. She was a phenomenal woman. She was actually a doctor from New York, I found out later, who 70 years old is pitching bales at the sheep farm. Anyways, I got Shanti that day. Shanti, I love the terms, Sanskrit terms. So Om Shanti was one of my mantras. And so anyways, I knew I was going to call her Shanti, and I picked up Shanti a couple of weeks after that. So that's what started the part of having, seeing that dogs could eat. So I made a choice to ask a veterinarian friend in Calgary at the time, can dogs be vegetarian? She said, of course they can. We sell vegetarian formulas because dogs have food sensitivity. So I remember all that back then. And I made a choice to make Shanti. I made her food, and she was a phenomenal dog for 13 years. She did really well.
So did you make the food yourself, or?
I did. I did. I'm a cook. I gotta cook. I gotta cook. It's at Ukrainian Barnaby. Yeah. And so I ended up making her food, and then I met Gord in 2010 in Calgary, and by then I was doing different things. I made a choice to actually go and help companies raise money. So I did. I basically was a consultant, if you will, and I did some personal training, things like that. You were
still building websites and things like that at that time.
That was later.
Oh, okay.
Later, yeah. And so Gord and I met via his business, and it was an investor night. So I went to that. I'd heard about it from my brother. So again, a long story, but I get there, and him and I, we meet, and we end up having this phenomenal connection. And he's from Saskatoon area originally, which we didn't know each other then, of course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just crazy. He's Norwegian. I'm half Norwegian as well. So I talk about my Russian roots, but I'm also half Norwegian. And so there was a strong connection right away. And we ended up being together. I said, just so you know, I don't want to stay in Calgary because I hate snow. I got to the point. I don't use the word hate very often, but it's the thing that when you're doing the 30, the minus 35, chipping at the windshield, I just went, no, I'm done. And so I said, just so you know, I want to move to Vancouver. And he's like, I hear you. I'm with you. And so anyways, we made that choice. And I'm at Whole Foods. I'm walking down an aisle in West Van here at Whole Foods. And I went, vegetarian foods still aren't on these shelves. And that's what started then, because I've got my dog. There's market opportunity for sure. And we started the process, and that was 10 years ago. So it's taken a while, because a lot has happened when you have a big dream. That's when the real big challenges come. So it was a process of teaching. Gord had raised capital, he understood it, but we had a lot to go through in order to build the plan and get to where we are right now, to the point where we've raised enough capital to start our commercial production. And then from there, we're working with a beautiful group of veterinarians. So. Yeah.
So where is it going to be? Where is it being produced now, or it's still in the? No,
it's going to be produced here. We've been doing some feeding trials behind the scenes. There was a lot to do that we made a choice to. You don't have to do that, but we made a choice to do that. And then we wanted to have a lot of veterinarians involved, because veterinarians are our distribution system. We are going to be doing that and direct. So we're not a retail product. We wanted to look at all of the things that could take out the blocks, like anything from margins. So if we can sell to you direct, then we can keep more margins in order to do other things. It'll take a while to get there yet, but once we're able to, then we can then introduce nutrition programs, which my programming now will come into effect. Working with veterinarians, we can develop nutrition programs which aren't happening at a clinical level. So we can actually show our foods working.
So it'll be made in Canada.
It's here in Vancouver, and we're only going to be doing the first couple of years will only be Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
And in a 25-mile radius, there are anywhere from 375 to 400,000 dogs.
But so if people were living in another part of Canada or in the United States or
we eventually can ship. Eventually will, because it's a light product. It's a dry product. It's not a kibble. But most likely it'll be for a while yet. It's going to be in Vancouver. We want to really demonstrate
solid and
that it works. That it works. And we can really get strong. And we know it'll work, but work with the veterinarians, get some clinical data and some case studies, and start to really work away at showing that foods like this can actually be very powerful for dogs.
So, I mean, it just seems kind of like a long way from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, little girl on, in the rural area. And how would you, know that you were
Yeah.
picking up blocks along your way to get to this point? And then, of course, beyond this is who knows what. So right now, you do speaking on this, and
yeah, throughout it, like in Calgary days, I did a lot of networking groups. I had quite a few connection groups, and then my speaking started at the Chamber of Commerce, where they would ask me to come, go do the business after hours, and then eventually I ran the membership committee, and then it grew from there. And then when I went into personal training and doing some network marketing, I was always asked to speak because I was combining, a lot of the things together. And then I decided to begin Vegan Vancouver quite a few years ago, and the purpose of that was to really celebrate what was great about vegan, what could be great about a vegan business. So it was really focused on the economy of it, if you will, and celebrating people that are doing good things with plant-based business or vegan. And so I do quite a bit of speaking there. And then, of course, Virchew is going to be having me in front of a lot of rooms, because it's going to be important to be educating people on why this switch and why dogs don't need meat, and why we are, fostering and nurturing a new way of bringing foods to dogs.
Well, it's a new earth. We are evolving, all of us.
We really are.
Anything.
Yeah.
So your website, Laura, if people want to contact you to get more information about the Virchew or about other things that you're doing.
Anything, wide open. It's virchew.com. So BABIRCHEW.com. A lot of fun. And so I wanted to say, just first that with regards to Virchew, is that, as I shared with you earlier, it's not a dog food company, but it's about food for dogs. And it's also about food for us, and how food impacts our world and the economy through to health, of course. But it's a very important conversation today, that we start to look at truly sustainable foods.
And also it's the programming and indoctrination that we've had for so long, and that we passed on, and that was passed on to us. But it's the idea that are we eating to live or living to eat?
It's so true. And I think that we did get to go through that thing. I think we still are. We're living to eat, and it's not serving us. It's not serving us. We need to ask ourselves, why am I eating this? Is this nurturing me?
Yeah.
Or is it killing me? And literally, it can be.
Yeah.
And we need to ask that question. But of course, that's where the psychology and the understanding of how you operate and where you're coming from is, then we start to make those better choices. We can't, it's very unconscious. When we're stuffing things in our mouth because we're trying to fill up an area or fill up something that we've not dealt with, something that we want. It's screaming at us. It's like Oprah said, really, she calls them whispers. Sometimes they're screams. I think we absolutely have to follow that part when it comes to the health aspect of it, right? We were, to go and follow, what does my body want, right?
Yeah.
And then and certainly, for me, it's as long as we're making more choices that are plant-based, the better we'll be. Mm. It's got the fiber, it's got the nutrients, it's got the antioxidants, It's like someone said, you don't find a miracle superfood or super ingredient within a pork chop. It's always within something that's from the plant kingdom. So if we just see it as that way, then make other choices. If we feel we need some meat, go for it, But for the most part, eating plant-based is a really powerful way to live.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to, just look at choices. And I think the sooner we can let go of condemning people for either choice, absolutely, for whatever choices they're making, because I know the wounds that happen and that really can be, because I felt very, as an outsider, even to my own family, because right, because I couldn't eat what they ate. So I wasn't part of the tribe. So I was part of a different,
right,
so and we're doing that a lot these days in different ways on social media and whatever. It's like, if whatever that person's doing is wrong, whatever I'm doing is right. And we have to.
Right. I completely, the thing that, I think of you often when I'm listening to Brene Brown, because of your posts and you wanting, and how you really want to see more that's more cohesiveness, more conversation about it rather than division. When Brene Brown talks about, in one of her books, she talks about the big sort, and it was written by another man a few years ago prior to the Trump administration. But the big sort is literally where we're dividing, where we're choosing faction over family. And we must not. We must see it as not red, white, black, white, conservative, etc. We must not see this. We must see it as we're all the same.
Yeah, we're all one.
And we are, and we've got to take care of that inside of our own home first. Obviously, that starts right here, and then it goes, to everybody around us. Everybody that we include. Like, the big sort is not good. The more we're dividing, we're even seeing it through the coronavirus. Where we have to actually separate ourselves. I mean, this is very indicative of the world that's we've gone the wrong way. We need to run the other way.
Yeah, our pendulum has really swung hard. And the other thing that really came to me with the virus and all the different division that we're seeing, we're being put into these different groups. And my husband was mentioning to me something about, man, this is happening and that's happening. And I said, there's something for everybody, honey. And he kind of was, I said, look, fear is the thing that keeps us in our animalistic nature, in our survival mode, in our constant, we can't make good decisions in fear. Right. So if you're not afraid, he said, I'm not afraid about that virus. I said, I know, you're afraid of the stock market. Somebody else is afraid of of war.
All going to be, so that's the part
for everybody. They've got a flavor, just flick the channel and you'll hear something else you can be afraid of. Somebody else is afraid their teeth aren't white enough to get that job. Sure. We're being programmed into this whole, or there's not enough. And part of that not enough is finding new sustainable ways to thrive. Absolutely. And not just be,
our world depends on it.
Yeah, and it depends on the women, not just women, because I really feel that after
but we need more women in
women who are embracing their feminine. I find that the thing that has been a turnoff for me, because of course I was involved in politics a number of years ago, ran in a couple of elections and so forth. But what bothered me about the whole way it's being put forward is we're changing a little bit, but a lot of times women are being more masculine than men in order to be involved in politics. It's like we're doing the same kind of peeing contest the men are doing, and we
can't work.
That's not how we. It's against our whole makeup. We have to have that balance, masculine and feminine, in us, but we have to bring forward the feminine way of the nonviolent communication. Now, although Gandhi was very much that way too, but he was embracing his feminine as far as I can see.
Right.
And that's where we need to, I think, in my opinion, we need more of that.
Yeah. And it's not about one or the other, like you said. It's not that. It's persons, and it's just. But we need more representation of female persons, and all diversity, of course.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I love the something I saw last evening. It's to ask the question, who's not in the room? So wherever we are, who's not in this room that should be? And that's exactly how we're looking at Virchew, who's not in this room that should be. And so that we can learn more and be able to bring this out into a way that is representing everybody. Right?
What a great way to look at your product and your whole marketing. And this is what
I've been working on that for so long. I'm really, can't wait.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared. So, oh my goodness, I so appreciate this, Laura. I think everyone's going to really be inspired by your journey.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I welcome, like I said, anybody, send me an email and let's, or text me, or if you want to call, my phone's, right on the website there as well. And so I'd love to connect with anybody that has questions, especially about being a woman in business and raising capital. It has become one of my passions.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Over 3/4 of the money that we have raised has been from women. And I am thrilled to be, and the story is not even out there yet. Like, I'm watching what's going on in the Vancouver landscape here, and I'm looking forward to sharing our story, that we have mostly women here that have supported this, and it's very exciting.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. This has been just fantastic. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with people and letting people know. I will have all the links on the website. And for everyone who's been watching, I just want to encourage you to like this video, subscribe it, share it, check out the website, of course, and where the podcasts are and all the other blogs and everything for Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine and my own Clarity Whisperer as well. So until next time, take care.
Thank you so much, Catherine.